game, or you want to talk about the Dolphins? What do you think?
I guess we could talk about the Dolphins and get it out of the way. Yeah, so that's their third loss in a row. Tua's coming back next week, which it's kind of funny. We've reached a point where we're like, God, I'm really glad Tua's coming back. Yeah, it's been the last 3 weeks have just been just not good. Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson can't seem to stay healthy, and their defense is. I mean, they're 6 games into the season. They started off 3-0, and there was some good stuff. Their defense wasn't necessarily great, but whatever. And then the last 3 weeks, I feel like their defense really hasn't been that good. The offensive line hasn't been that good. Obviously, Tua's been out. They haven't been scoring a lot of points, and it's just been kind of the stuff that we were concerned about coming into the season has all kind of come true. They're not really running the ball that well. Offensive line isn't protecting that well. The defense hasn't been as good as last year. The defense isn't getting turnovers, so
Yeah, I think that the defense played pretty well today.
Yeah,
they were all over Minnesota, especially in the first half, and they really made it difficult on you. But as we've said a million times in the NFL, if you can't score, like, it really doesn't matter how good your defense is. Eventually they're going to get beat. The Dolphins, I think, actually they were winning the time of possession battle. I don't know what it ended up being. But especially in the first half,
they had a chance to win the game. I mean, they were driving pretty well, and they were down 16-10, and then Jalen Waddle fumbled, or he got the ball knocked out. So yeah, they still, even with all that, they still had a chance to win. So I guess that gives you some hope moving forward. But
yeah, I thought just watching the game, I just thought the game was completely mismanaged by the head coach. You've got your third string quarterback in there, and I don't understand why, your left tackle's out. I don't understand why they don't put more of a premium on protecting the quarterback. Max protect more, keep a back in to help block, because you're going to have jailbreaks, and that's basically what happened in the game. They kept having either the left tackle, sometimes the right tackle, whatever, somebody would get beat. And that would basically just cost the team. Like, early in the game, like, it's third down, they're in field goal range, and they want Skylar Thompson to drop back and pass. And it's like, why don't you just run a screen pass, or do a running play, do a draw, something quick to, so that way you can just kick a field goal. They didn't do it. Okay, they have the fourth down in their own territory. They try a fake punt, which... again, the game, it's not like the game was out of hand. Minnesota wasn't playing well. It wasn't like, oh, geez, we really got to get on the board because we're in trouble. It felt like Minnesota had 10 points forever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just, I've been a fan of what McDaniel does with the offense, but the game management today, I thought was really lacking. And I don't know that there's a scenario where the Dolphins, would have won, but they could have won. Like, if they'd given themselves a better chance, they could have won the game. They had the play right before halftime is a perfect example, right? There's like 30 seconds to go, right? And instead of just taking a knee and getting into halftime, they try to throw the ball. So they complete one pass, they try to complete another pass, it ends up getting intercepted, and Minnesota gets a field goal. So they gave Minnesota 3 points there. They lost 3 points, earlier because the guy missed a field goal. So it's just, yeah, I just feel like, you've got to be better than that. When your team is struggling and you're on your third quarterback, you've got to use your brain and manage this stuff correctly to give yourself a chance. If they'd have just kept the Dolphins in the game until the third quarter, they could have won. Yeah. I do find it funny, though, the Dolphins were down to their only quarterback in 2 games in a row. That's 2 games in a row. We've been down to the only quarterback we have that dressed for the game. It's just, man.
Yeah. So, well, it's just, and I don't want to jump to this conclusion yet, but I mean, the Dolphins are basically, even still, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle had over 100 yards receiving today, which they seem to just do that like automatically almost. But it still feels like the same old Dolphins. And we can talk about this some more. But, I mean, there's so many teams that are 3-3 or 2-4, or then there are some 4-2 teams where you're like, I don't know if I really buy this. Everyone, like most of the teams in the league it's just this. I don't even know what to call it. It's just a jumbled mess of mediocrity. Okay, that's basically what it is. That's what most of the NFL is. There's a few teams on the top, few teams on the bottom, and then just a bunch of mediocrity. So the Dolphins are 3-3. They could win a few games in a row and be 5-3, or end up being 7-4 or 7-5. So it's like you're not really out of it yet, but it's not. For people after the first couple weeks of the season wondering if the Dolphins are like for real or something, no, they're not for real. They're not a championship contending team. They're just like most of the rest of the teams that don't have a truly elite quarterback.
Yeah, and Teddy Bridgewater threw for 300 yards.
Yeah.
He threw for 329 yards in 3 quarters. Like, I think the most disturbing part is that, I think if Bridgewater had actually had a full week of practice, he just got cleared yesterday, so there's no way he took any snaps with the first team. If he'd have had just a week of practice, I think Bridgewater could basically do what Tua is doing. Like, I don't think there's a lot of – I think it's a lot of duplication.
I think you might be able to find a few differences here and there, but I don't think it's that far apart. So – and again, Tua, well, Teddy Bridgewater's got trouble staying healthy, but so does Tua. So it's kind of, and it's funny because it's like I don't think anyone's made any sort of definitive judgment on him. I mean, we kind of have. We don't think he's an elite quarterback. We don't think he'll ever be that. But, like, he's not going to play that. He's going to get hurt. And he gets hurt on a regular basis, so that interrupts any sort of momentum that he would get from playing several weeks in a row and, like, learning on the job, I guess you could say. So that sort of eliminates that. So then it's like, well, how good can he possibly be? And then the offense, like I said, the offensive line worries me because it's like some of those hits Bridgewater was taking. If Tua takes those hits, I feel like he's going to get hurt. So, I mean, I thought Bridgewater was going to get hurt today. So it's like, it just doesn't really bode well, and it's not for the Tua people. It's like, this isn't really encouraging,
Yeah, they have, as we said before the season, like the Dolphins have some key areas that if things happen, they're going to have a hard time. And, we saw it in the last couple weeks, when we had some key defensive players out, then you had Teron Armstead out. Like when that happens, it's just going to be difficult for them to overcome. I thought, as it's been going the whole season, like I thought the Dolphins, they run the ball pretty well. They don't do it enough. It seems like they seem to they don't stick with it.
Yeah, I was thinking that would be more of a focal point of what they were going to do. I mean, I understand you have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but yeah, they do have some good running backs, and maybe they're having success because they're running, only a little bit, and it sort of throws the defense off a little bit, I guess, maybe, but I would like to see more of that, just to try to establish that and then play off of that. But
yeah. So big game against the Steelers next week. Listen, this can be fixed. The Dolphins are 3-3, not the end of the world. They still have a chance, and the schedule coming up are teams that they're going to be capable of beating. So there's no Buffalo and Kansas City for a little while. So, it's in front of them. They can do it, but it's just kind of difficult when your starting quarterback is now just coming back off of injury, and now you need him to play well in order to win. And the Steelers defense played well today. Like they beat Tampa. So, going into the NFL craziness today. So the Jets, the Steelers, the Colts, and the Giants all win, and Tampa, Cleveland, Jacksonville, and Green Bay all lose.
Atlanta won too.
Yeah, that's right. Atlanta beat San Francisco. I forgot about that. So it's like, and I mean, San Francisco's teetering on the edge of too many injuries. Like they're right. They may have had too many injuries at this point. They lost their best corner, their best linebacker. Like they've got, I think 7 out of 11. That's what Mark Schlereth was saying today. 7 out of their 11 starters on defense are injured. So there comes a point where it's like, it doesn't even matter anymore. Like it's like Baltimore last year. You've just had too many injuries and there's no chance. So it's getting to that point with San Francisco. I don't even want to try to figure out who the hell is good. Like I've already planted my flag last week when I said the Jets and the Giants are not going to make the playoffs, and every week I look like an idiot now. so we'll see how this goes, because there's going to be whoever the 7th seed in the NFC is going to be some team that we're like, really? That we don't believe in at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and I think, did Seattle win? Yeah, Seattle beat the Cardinals. Arizona, I don't know what the hell's going on with them. I don't think Seattle's very good, but, I mean, they're just sort of hanging around that. Like I said, most of the teams, they just sort of hang around 500, and if you do that, you got a shot. So, yeah, the Bucks, like, Colin Cowherd's been on the Bucks, and I'm just like, I'm not really seeing it, dude. And he's like, well, they got some injuries, and I'm like, okay, are you going to start scoring points? And it's like, they scored 18 points today. So...
Yeah, the offense is a real problem. I'm not. It's not the kind of thing where I'm going to give up on them, because I feel like if you give them enough time, they will.
Right.
They'll figure it out, and I think
I'm just like, okay, guys, you need to kind of figure this out. You got a problem here, because if they're not going to score a lot of points, then,
Yeah. Yeah, the defense is still pretty good, but they have some issues. It's kind of similar to the Rams. But the Rams did kind of get right today. They played Carolina, but I think Carolina is a raging dumpster fire. I think every year we have a team that's just, they've fallen off, and they've already fired their coach. Like, I think it's that situation.
Remember when Colin predicted they would win 12 games? Last year? It was last year, right? And it's just no.
Well, it's just hysterical to me. And thank you for leading me into this. It gets back to my point that I've been screaming about for over a year and a half now. Okay. So Carolina, they're like, they get this new owner, like, oh, we're all excited. And then they give Teddy Bridgewater a contract for no reason. Teddy Bridgewater had a nice 4 or 5 game stretch with the Saints. They're like, no, we're going to get Teddy Bridgewater. And they sign him to this contract that is ridiculous. You shouldn't be paying Teddy Bridgewater that much. And after the first year, they're like, yeah, God, Bridgewater just didn't work out. And we're all going, duh. So then instead of just drafting Justin Fields when he was right there to be drafted, they decide, no, we're going to trade for Sam Darnold. Last year, that doesn't work. He throws interceptions like crazy. Then they're like, no, now we're going to trade for Baker Mayfield. That doesn't work either. So again, Carolina, Detroit, Denver. Well, now Denver ended up trading for Russell Wilson, so it didn't matter. But all these teams, listen, Justin Fields doesn't look good, okay? He hasn't, it doesn't look good with Chicago. It could be a problem, whatever. I think you got to give it a little bit more time. But I think if you put Justin Fields with this Carolina team, they would be significantly better than they are now. And I think that's true with any of these teams. I don't understand.
What quarterback looks good on the Bears?
Right. I don't understand how these teams go into a season and they don't have a quarterback and they're like, whatever. Like Washington. Last year, their plan was, we're going to sign Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's your plan?
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. And I know, listen, everybody's down on Matt Ryan because of whatever, but the Colts are 3-2-1. So, I don't believe in the Colts as a team, not at all. I don't, but Matt Ryan's serviceable.
Yeah.
Like, a serviceable quarterback is worth a lot.
Well, the other thing is, like, I think people need to be, like, when you're trying to make judgments about teams, particularly teams where they've got a new coach or something, you need to look, like, for instance, Nathaniel Hackett. If you do some research on some of the hires that he was trying to make or the hires that he ended up making before the season or in the offseason, you'll kind of be like, does this guy know what the hell he's doing? And then I was reading something today about Matt Rule. He was a coach at Temple University, their football team, and so he started just bringing in ex-players who he coached at Temple in college. Just all over the place. And it feels to me like, and I could be wrong with this, I don't have any sourcing on this, but it feels to me like he's one of these college coaches who just said, well, I got a system, and any quarterback I bring in, I can get him to run it, it'll be fine. And it's like, dude, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. So that's one of those things. Whenever you hear somebody praising a new coach or something, it's like do some research and see. Like in Urban Meyer, we were kind of, especially you were like, I don't think this guy's going to be a good NFL coach, and you were right on the money. Just because based on some different moves and things that we heard about in that first offseason. So that's just one of those things to watch out for. Not just with college coaches, but with just any new coach in the NFL. Like, does this guy know what the hell he's doing?
I think you're right on about that. I was concerned about Urban Meyer because he was having trouble making it through a college season, like physically and emotionally. And you know what? Honestly, now that I've had time to kind of revisit it, I'm not hiring Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer's a train wreck. Every place he leaves is a disaster. Okay? The University of Florida, he left there. They had all these players arrested. The whole thing turned into a mess. He goes to Ohio State. They should have gotten rid of him after the situation with the coach happened, where he had the coach who was, beating up his wife, and he was like not telling anybody about it and all of that. And they had to suspend him and all this nonsense. Every school he leaves, it's a mess. When he leaves there. Same thing, Jacksonville Jaguars. He wasn't even there the full season. It's a disaster. So disaster follows this guy everywhere he goes. Like 10 years ago, okay, we could talk about Urban Meyer. Now I wouldn't hire him with a 40-foot pole. Like I think obviously the NFL is not going to hire him because of what a failure he was in Jacksonville. But if I was a college team, I wouldn't hire this guy. He's just a disaster. Like it's over. Like he had a nice run. Let him go be on television and do whatever. It's fine. But
hire Matt Rule for college. He seems like a college coach.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think the Carolina Panthers owner is a moron. I mean, he still owes Matt Rule $40 million. Like he went completely crazy on this. We got to get this coach and we got to pay him all this money instead of just get the right guy and don't worry about So yeah, That's a bit of a situation in Carolina. And I don't know how it's going to get fixed. They're talking about trading Christian McCaffrey now. Like if you probably didn't see it because I was watching Red Zone. Robbie Anderson, they kicked him off the field today. They kicked him out of the game. Like they're like, go to the locker room. He was too busy arguing with the coaches, and the new head coach basically sent him out. So yeah, that's a whole mess. Anyway. But so I just wrote down a couple of notes. So it looks like the Cleveland Browns have already fucked up their season. They lose. I mean, Cleveland just, good Lord, they lose the Jets game. They should never have lost the Jets game. That Falcons loss is terrible. Today they get their ass kicked by Bailey Zappi and the New England Patriots. It's just, I think it's done for. I don't think it's going to matter when Deshaun Watson comes back. I think they'll already be out of it. It's kind of what it looks like. Do we believe in the Jets or the Giants?
I don't believe in the Jets. The Giants, as a team that could make the playoffs, well, they're 5-1 now. So I think you got just mathematically, they got a shot at making the playoffs. Are they like a real no? I think it looks like Brian Daboll knows what he's doing as a head coach. Because they're playing to their strengths. Today, I mean, they beat the Ravens. The Ravens they've got their own issues to kind of figure out. So, yeah, I don't really, the Jets, I mean, they're the Jets. You're 4-2. Okay, you could be 4-4 in 2 weeks, and then it doesn't really matter. So,
Yeah, I mean, the Giants held the Ravens to 20 points. That's significant. That's no joke. And the Jets kicked the shit out of the Packers today. That wasn't even close to a game. Packers could do 0 on offense. So, I gotta give Robert Saleh credit. I know he's hanging on to the receipts, but I gotta give him credit. I can't imagine they're gonna beat, it's like same thing. I don't know how you beat good teams like this, but the Giants beat the Ravens today. It's like, that means something.
Well, how good are the Ravens though? That's one of my questions because Lamar Jackson, he's had some really good games, and then he's had some other, like today, he just, and then he has the turnover late in the game. I mean, they're 3-3 now. Like they had a close game against the Bengals. They should have beaten the Dolphins, and they blew that game. So yeah, I'm kind of, I'm not really I'm not really liking a lot of what I'm seeing. I mean, I guess they're still, again, they're 3-3, so they're in the mix. But it's just in terms of them being an elite team, I don't really see it yet. So.
Yeah, I think they have some holes, but I think that's a pretty nice win by the Giants. The Bengals were able to pull out the win against the Saints today, but they were behind most of the game. Are you concerned about the Bengals a little bit at this point?
Are they 3-3?
Yeah.
Of course they are, because because like 70% of the league is 3-3.
Right. Right. Exactly.
I mean, I guess it's early. Like if you're 3-3, even if you're 2-4 at this point, you're still kind of in it. You know, you're hanging right around 500. You know, so yeah. I mean, I guess it's a little concerning. But Burrow had 4 touchdowns today.
Yeah. No, the offense is figuring it out. Like they played well. Jamar Chase was unbelievable. So they have the offense is getting better, but they're that Baltimore game was, I don't know that it was disturbing. That was just kind of one of those things that could have gone either way. And I think that's what's happened to Cincinnati. They had a bunch of either way games. That game with Dallas could have gone either way. The game with Baltimore could have gone either way. So we'll see. But it seems like they're getting there. They seem like they're getting better every week. And it's hard. Listen, it's hard to win on the road. Especially, New Orleans is that's not an easy place to win. But I do, I am a little concerned, but it's not, again, nothing's frightening because it's not like there's anybody out there running away with it other than Buffalo.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the Bills, and the Chiefs?
Yeah. That was a real, that was a tough game. Like, it was not, we were expecting like a shootout, like we got the playoff game last year or back in January. But yeah, so it was, it was touch and go. Like it was, it was tough to score. It was tough to move the ball down the field. The Chiefs only had 20 points. That's a pretty nice job when you can go on the road and beat Kansas City like that. I don't think either team is as explosive as they were. I also think that they've learned kind of how to play each other a little bit. That kind of happens.
I still think the Bills are explosive, but these two teams are familiar with each other, so it's going to be harder to do that. I mean, they had those 2 long touchdown passes, so
Yeah, I do think that Buffalo's defense, I see it making a little bit of a difference now, especially having Von Miller.
Right.
They can generate a pass rush, even though Mahomes gets away from it most of the time. But they can cause some problems, and I think Buffalo having the better defense is kind of what won them the game today. But yeah, and then, is Buffalo going to be able to run the ball when they need to? I mean, that's not true. They can run the ball when they need to. It's just, can they run it consistently? Can that be something that they can lean on?
Can someone else besides Josh Allen run it consistently well,
Right.
Yeah, we were before we started the podcast, we were laughing because, Nick Wright on First Things First, when he does his NFL tiers, ranking the teams, we're just like, he's going to find some way to put the Chiefs above the Bills. I could be wrong on that. He may end up ranking the Bills there, but he'll do it begrudgingly, and he'll make some sort of he'll find some way to like get some dig in at Josh Allen or something, and just to be like Mahomes is better than him. So whatever.
No, and listen, I said it before we came on. Okay, that's the last 3 times Buffalo's played Kansas City in Kansas City. Okay, 2 out of 3 they've won. The one they didn't win, they probably should have won, and the one game that was a blowout, Buffalo blew them out. So that's 3 games in a row on your field. Buffalo's really been the better team. So, that doesn't mean Kansas City can't win the Super Bowl. Of course they can, but it's just if you're down on the Buffalo Bills and everyone before the season acting like Buffalo shouldn't really be the favorite. I mean, why are they the favorite? And I'm just like, I mean, you can complain about that if you want, but they just went into Kansas City and beat them again. So, maybe the professional gamblers know what they're talking about when they made Buffalo the favorite. Just saying.
Yeah.
I know everybody thinks they're really smart. Yeah, so I said before, I'm not going to try to figure out who's good. I mean, look, obviously Buffalo and Kansas City are good. I don't need to debate. That's not up for debate, and we don't need to talk about that. In the NFC, Minnesota's 5-1. Do I think they're really good? Nah, not really. So the rest of it, and Philadelphia's a good team. I'm still not.
I need to see more from Philadelphia. I'm
Right.
To me, I'm still a little bit the jury's out because because Jalen Hurts has obviously gotten better. I need to see more. And like if they beat the Cowboys, I'm like okay, but that doesn't. The Cowboys to me have a good defense, and their offense is fine. It's not unbelievable. And even when Dak Prescott comes back, I don't think their offense is going to be unbelievable. So it's just hard to. But I mean, look, you can't. It's on some level, you are what your record says you are. Okay, and so if the Eagles if the Eagles beat the Cowboys, then I mean they're still undefeated and they're what 6-0, 7.
If the Eagles, if they win tonight, they'll be 6-0.
You're 6-0. It's like okay, well if you just win 5 more games, that's 11 wins already. So it's like you're kind of you've put yourself in a really really good position. So we'll see.
Yeah. So, all right. So, should be a good Cowboys-Eagles game. Anything else we want to talk about NFL-wise?
There wasn't any sort of going for it on fourth down decisions that I was, that we were irritated about this week, I guess. That's an ongoing thing that we're kind of watching. I did read an article today about someone complaining about this debate. He's like, well, the teams have more information than you do. And I'm like, I guess, but it's just kind of, well, as the season goes on, we'll talk about more of those things. And, there just wasn't anything really egregious this week.
The problem, as I see it, is the people who make the important decisions, like owners, they don't make decisions based on what your percentages were. They make decisions based on whether you won or lost. That's what this comes down to. So all the analytics people, your argument stops when we get to the win-loss argument, okay? Because your job will be judged on whether you win or lose, not whether you were right about the percentages. So, we can do, and yes, it is somewhat of a stupid debate, but people's jobs are being decided on calls like this. So that's why it's not a stupid debate.
Well, no, I think to me, I was reading it and I'm just like, okay, so you're saying they have more information than I do, and I'm criticizing it after the fact, and you're saying, well, and the article was saying they're like, well, you don't know if it's going to work out or not. It's like whatever you do, it might not work out. It's like, well, yeah, that's true, but there's times where I just see stuff where it's like, why don't you just kick the field goal and take the points? And I feel like people are like, well, then your percentage of winning goes up, whatever, and it's like. Some of these situations, it's kind of, it can go either way. But, other times it's like, I really think you should just kick. And they're like, well, if you kick the field goal there and you don't, you could go for a touchdown there and that'll do this and this and this. But if you kick the field goal, you're still in the game. You might still win it. Like, it's not like it's the end of the world. So, again, there'll be probably more egregious decisions later on in the season, or maybe something tonight or tomorrow. But there wasn't anything this week so far that I was like, oh, what an idiot for going for it there.
Well, and every situation, and by the way, every situation is its own entity. You can't take universal numbers and apply them to every situation. You have to take every situation individually for what it is, right? In the NFL, it's just one game at a time. All that matters is the decision you make in that one game that you're in to win it. Like,
well, and here's one that I'll give you today. So the Chiefs were down, or excuse me, the Bills were down 7-3, and they drove down, and it got to 4th and goal from like the 2 or something, the 2 or 3 yard line. I would have kicked the field goal there, make it 7-6. You're only down by 1 point. If they score a touchdown, you can go down and score a touchdown to get a 2-point conversion and tie the game. It's still the first half, so I would have gone for it there. They didn't, or excuse me, I would have kicked the field goal there. They went for it. They didn't get it. Now, granted, the receiver fell down, so it almost worked. So. But they ended up winning the game. Not that big of a deal. And then in the fourth quarter, the Bills have the ball, and they get to a 4th down in their own side of the field, and they decide to go for it. But it's late in the game. That's fine. There's other situations where I'm like, I don't think you should be going for it in your own side of the field. That one I'm okay with because the game really is on the line there. So. Well,
it's also, again, and it's also different. Who's my quarterback? Who's their quarterback, right? If I've got Josh Allen, like, you texted me that during the game, and I was like, yeah, but if you have Josh Allen, I don't know that it matters that much. I don't know that it's just not, it's a different decision, right? The Dolphins today, when you're faking a punt in your own territory, right? like, what are you doing? Even getting the first down doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And because of that, they lost the field position battle. And in that game, field position really mattered because nobody could score. So you have to, those decisions are based on the game that you're in, the situation, who's my quarterback, who's their quarterback. There's so much more involved than just, well, these are the percentages.
Right.
People act like
I think it's an intellectually lazy position for some people to say, well, I mean, you're criticizing it because it didn't work. Okay, sometimes that's true, but I'm not just criticizing stuff because it doesn't work. I'm looking at the process of it, and then I'm also looking at the situation and going, sometimes, why don't you just kick the damn field goal? What are you doing? But
when you and I say these things, we're saying it regardless of what you choose to do and the outcome is. We're saying what we think you should do. Like in the so Notre Dame was playing Stanford, right? Don't ask me why I'm still watching Notre Dame because they're terrible. But regardless, they're playing Stanford. They're having a hard time scoring in the first quarter of the game. They get the ball. They're down inside the 10-yard line, and it's fourth down. And instead of they try to get it's 4th and 2, and Notre Dame's struggling offensively. They go for it. They don't get it. If they'd have just kicked that field goal, they lose the game. At the end of the game, they lost by 2 points. So, these things really, really matter. That's the thing in the NFL. Unless you're, like I said, you're the Chiefs of the Bills and you have Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, unless you have a quarterback like that, right? These games come down to a possession here, a possession there, a call here, a call there. So that's my point. When these games are decided by that small of a margin, you're better off taking the higher percentage play, which is kicking the field goal. Regardless of what anybody says, the higher percentage play in all these situations is making the field goal to get 3 points.
Yeah. Well, and then there was in the Bama, I guess we'll move on to college football, but in the Bama